The behavioral load transfer model describes a structural condition in which the burden of sustaining action moves from internal self regulation to external structures that carry continuity, responsibility, and persistence on behalf of the agent. The central distinction is simple. The issue is not whether a person wants to continue. The issue is whether the conditions required for continuation can still be carried internally. Many modern tasks require long effort without clear reward, stable feedback, or reliable signs of progress. The agent must maintain rhythm, absorb uncertainty, and continue without strong confirmation that the action is working. Under these conditions, behavioral load can saturate. Saturation occurs when the internal burden of maintaining action becomes heavier than the agent can reliably carry. When this happens, action does not always stop. It often relocates into an external structure. This relocation is the core mechanism of the model. An external structure may provide rhythm, accountability, payment, schedule, audience, or institutional pressure. Its function is not necessarily to solve the task. Its function is to keep the attempt from collapsing. This is why behavioral load transfer should not be reduced to a motivation problem. Motivation and knowledge may still be present. The failure point is the burden of sustaining action under unstable conditions. When behavioral load is transferred, continuation is no longer carried only by private intention. It becomes partly carried by an external relation or system. The agent continues partly because stopping now has a cause outside the self. This produces partial responsibility substitution. Failure becomes relational rather than purely internal. Continuation is reinforced by obligation rather than only by intention. Withdrawal becomes harder because it may interrupt a structure that now includes others, money, or visibility. This substitution can preserve movement and reduce the immediate pressure of self regulation, but it does not automatically rebuild internal capacity. Transfer behavioral load can maintain continuity without internalizing the ability to sustain that continuity independently. The task continues, but the conditions that make continuation difficult may remain unchanged. Once the external structure is removed, the original burden can return. This is the model's key asymmetry. External support may stabilize action, but stabilization is not the same as capability growth. A person may keep writing because there is a scheduled meeting. A project may keep moving because someone else tracks progress. A practice may continue because payment creates commitment. In each case, the system has redistributed the load required to continue. At scale, behavioral load transfer can become economically stabilized. Payment or exchange can create commitment, exit friction, and legitimacy. The transaction may not be mainly for a finished outcome. It may be for the maintenance of continuity itself. In this condition, persistence becomes something that can be purchased, scheduled, supervised, or institutionally held. This does not make the structure false. It also does not make dependency pathological. The model describes a structural adaptation to environments where internally sustained action is difficult. The risk appears when the system begins to optimize for not stopping rather than for arriving. A load transfer system can keep action alive while leaving capability growth uncertain. It can normalize dependency and make unsupervised continuation feel less available. Behavioral load transfer models should not be applied to every form of help, collaboration, teaching, coaching, or institutional support. Many external structures genuinely expand capacity, clarify direction, or transfer knowledge. The model identifies a narrower condition in which the main function of the external structure is to carry the burden of persistence that the agent can no longer reliably carry alone. The analytic question is whether the support is helping capacity become internal, or whether it is primarily carrying continuity in place of internal regulation. Minimal formulation. Behavioral load transfer model describes a condition in which the burden of sustaining action shifts from internal self-regulation to external load-bearing structures, allowing continuity to persist without necessarily resolving the underlying saturation of internal capacity. Naming declaration. Behavioral load transfer model originates within meta-writing ecology as a structural model for describing how behavioral persistence is maintained when internal regulatory capacity becomes saturated. It does not refer to motivation failure, personal weakness, or ordinary collaboration. It names a load redistribution pattern in which continuity is externally carried, while the underlying capacity limit may remain unresolved.